Brittany Howard is the lead singer of the blues rock band Alabama Shakes, who up until this point have been pretty solid. I think their last album in 2015, Sound and Colour, was really quite good. They've garnered a lot of critical acclaim with that album, and even the album before that too. I still return to quite a few songs on their last album as well, like Give Me All Your Love, Don't Wanna Fight, the title track Sound and Colour, and This Feeling. This Feeling is such a great track. Oh, and I'm not entirely sure what's in store for the future of this band. I don't know if they're on hiatus. I don't know if they're on a huge break, if they're ever even going to come back. I don't know that for certain, but it seems as though Brittany Howard is in a bit of a solo mindset at the moment, just wanting to do her own thing, putting out something independently. And this album here, Jaime, which is dedicated to her sister who passed away, isn't fully about her sister, but you know, the album is very much inspired about the passing of her sister. And even though there are similarities to some stuff that Alabama Shakes have already done, you can definitely feel the solo aspect of this album. I mean, instrumentally, it's not quite as full as what we got before. There are some, you know, detours into different styles and sounds that we haven't seen Brittany do thus far. But unfortunately, musically, it definitely feels like there's something missing with this album. Not on every track, but just throughout, I'm not really fully gripped by a lot of the tracks here. Although I should start with the positives though, because they all come at the beginning of the album, and there are definitely the highlights here. The opening track, History Repeats especially. Just a really good funky jam. That kind of like 70s soulful funk era is definitely the inspiration for this track. Some James Brown type stuff, that kind of thing. Stevie Wonder, that kind of stuff from the 70s. And I love the repetition of the refrain right at the end of the song. It just gives this track a really danceable groove. The vocal performance here is really, really strong. Then we got He Loves Me coming right after this, which is an interesting track about how Brittany feels as though no matter what she does, even when she does things that might be considered sinful or I guess negative or frowned upon things such as smoking, drinking, no matter what she does in that regards in her life, God will always love her. Which I thought it was pretty interesting the way she listed off different things that she does, and even though she does them, it's not going to stop her from being loved by God, because God essentially loves everyone. I don't know the ins and outs of the truths of this, honestly, because I'm not a particularly religious person, but I did find it quite interesting how she kind of flipped this idea of, being not the perfect ideal person can still make you loved by God. The track Georgia takes a bit of a while to get going. I think it's pretty tedious at the beginning, honestly, unlike the first track where the refrain repeats over and over, and it's great. I think on this track, the line that she repeats quite often gets a bit stale. The line being, I just want Georgia to notice me, but as soon as you get into the second half of the track, I think it becomes really good. And the album doesn't like hit a nosedive or anything like that after this one. It just kind of hits a point where I'm just not really as invested in some of the songs. I mean, Short and Sweet is a lovely, heartwarming ballad. I couldn't take that away from Brittany on this one, but it is just really, it's just kind of there. It just breezes by, and it leaves no impression on me, to be honest. Similarly with tracks like Tomorrow as well, it just has one of the most simplistic beats you'll ever hear. It's just this simple hand clap rhythm, and I don't know, man, I feel like you could just pick out something like that on Logic and just add nothing to it, and then you've got yourself a beat. And I just feel like that's kind of what happened with this track. I'm sure my boy Buffalo Staple will understand me here when I say if he played this beat, he would just know where exactly it came from, and he could probably whip it up straight away and make a song out of it and add something different to it, but it just kind of is just the most straightforward beat you'll ever hear. Now, aside from the simple moments like this, Presence is another one. This is actually the track that feels like very much inspired by her sister's death. It still is kind of musically, it's quite pretty with the instrumental, but musically I'm just not really that grabbed by it. So yeah, aside from those, there are just some out of place moments for me on this album, with the closing track especially, and then the track in the middle of the album, 13th Century Metal. This would have been the perfect intro track to like completely change your style and show people that you're going in a new direction on an album that, you know, explores themes of like change, political change, but yeah, it's just placed in the middle of this album, and I just don't really get how it fits. This would have been the perfect intro track to like completely change your style and show people that you're going in a new direction on an album that, you know, explores themes of like change, political change, but yeah, it's just placed in the middle of this album, and I just don't really get how it fits. And the last track of which I just mentioned, which is this psychedelic, bluesy, soulful song that mashes up some really weird sounds together to kind of create this blurry, hazy mess, to be honest. Provides probably the worst vocal performance here as well. It just all sounds really ugly to me. And I don't know, Brittany is such a powerhouse of a vocalist, right? And this track doesn't showcase the best of her abilities. Quite a lot of this album actually doesn't show the best of her vocal chops, to be honest. But this one in particular is really, really weak. And that's another thing as well with the slower tracks that I've said are pretty underwhelming. There were slower tracks on Sound and Colour, and they actually fit in really well. And I mentioned how good This Feeling is, and that's a really slow jam of a tune, but like it works really well. And yeah, that's what's missing from this album. Like the instrumentals just aren't fulfilling at all. However, I will say that the track Goat Head is quite interesting lyrically. This one explores the story of when she was a child, and like there was a racial incident involving her father, I think it was, and some like goat head was left in the back of her car. It's a really weird story and sounds very disturbing. And I mean the literal head of a goat. It's very bizarre. It must have been traumatizing, to be honest, something like that. Strange as hell. And it's a track as well where she explores her race. Like she's a biracial person, but she's, you know, a bit confused on this track. The way she words some of the lyrics as well is really cool. Like she's like, I'm black, I'm white, but like, am I? I don't know what I am. It really just goes to show that the entire discography of Logic completely becomes nullified when you've just got this one track here that explores race so much more interestingly than he. But this was the one track that really did make me realize that there isn't one piece of thread tying this whole album together. It is just a bunch of random different stories and songs that don't really bring any theme full circle or anything. Musically, these tracks are fairly underdeveloped as well. Yeah, I guess it's pretty meh overall. I guess it has some great moments, but just not enough. I'm going with a 5.5 out of 10. I think Brittany definitely did want to get this out there though. It does feel like an independent project that she just wanted to work on, you know, throw in some personal aspects of her life and just kind of get to call her own shots on what she does on this album without other people interfering or anything like that. You can see that that's where she's currently at in her life, and I respect that. It just didn't really leave much of an impression on me, unfortunately. And I would hazard a guess and say that she's probably not even looking for any kind of critical approval on this album, but that's just how I feel on it personally. Let me know what you think of this album. Thank you for watching the review. Do have a good day. And goodbye and subscribe. Have a good day. Bye.